For those of you who have already joined us, today we'll be using the Q&A feature. If you have questions for our presenters, for Kelly or Chef John, you can use that Q&A feature to type in any questions that you have. So right now, while we wait for some more people to join, if you want to locate that Q&A feature, it might be located in a different spot depending on your device. So it might be located under 3 dots, or it might be on the right side of your screen. So you can locate that Q&A feature. If you want to type something in there now just to let us know that you're able to find it, you can maybe type in there what's your favorite fall food, what's your favorite fall holiday food that you like to eat, and that way we'll know that a lot of you have found that Q&A feature. So feel free to let us know what you enjoy eating in the fall season. Is it apples? Is it pears? Is it some type of squash? Kelly, Chef John, what do you like to eat in the fall?
For some reason, I associate fall with like German food, a little heavier. Probably my upbringing or whatever. Sauerkraut, some potato dumplings, something with pork, maybe a little beer, just a little.
Yep, just a little bit.
How about you?
Ooh, squash. I was the one who pushed the recipes today, so I'm a squash gal myself.
Yep. We have a lot of squashes popping up in the Q&A feature, so definitely on the right track.
We picked great recipes.
We have some pumpkin, we have some pecan pie, apples, pears, turkey, mashed potatoes.
We never said pie.
Apple dumplings.
Oh.
One of my favorites.
Sweet potato, that's one of my favorites, especially sweet potato pie.
I had sweet potato casserole for the first time the other day.
Ooh, nice.
Marshmallows?
With marshmallows on top. And my gosh, it was too sweet for me.
Yeah.
It was sweet. I know. I don't know what's wrong with me, but everyone else was devouring it.
All right, so thank you to those of you who have joined us. Again, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, there's an orange Need Help button on your screen. You can click that orange Need Help button to receive assistance with any technical difficulties. So thank you for joining us for another Let's Get Cooking event with Let's Move by United Healthcare. Today's topic with Kelly, registered dietitian, and Chef John is cooking with fall harvest. So for more events with Let's Move by United Healthcare, you can log on to www.letsmovebyuhc.com and log in using your United Healthcare username and password to see everything else that we have going on coming up. Our next teaching kitchen, our last teaching kitchen for 2023 will be on December 13th, and the topic will be healthy holiday baking. So those of you who are interested in some holiday baking tips and ideas, join us on December 13th. We'll put that in the Q&A feature with the registration link for that. And before that, on November 28th, we have another Move and Flow online dance class. That way you can burn some calories and get some movement in for all of that holiday delicious eating that you'll be doing. And our last Move and Flow dance class of the year will be on December 19th. So we'll type all of that into the Q&A feature for you, along with the Let's Move by UHC website, so you can see everything that we have going on the rest of this year, as well as coming up in 2024. So this session is being recorded and will be available for future viewing. We'll let you know when that recording is available. So for now, I will turn it over to Kelly and Chef John to take us on another culinary journey.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Joe. And welcome everybody to today's Teaching Kitchen. It is all about fall harvest. And like I said, I am a big squash gal myself. So I was like, Chef John, we need to teach people how are we going to prep squash, especially with Thanksgiving coming up. So we want to try to kind of inspire you guys on doing something a little different this year. So today we'll talk all about squash. We'll work with different types of squash. And then we'll also talk a little bit about the nutritional benefit Right, Chef John?
Yeah, of course. That goes along with your expertise, dietitians, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, the thread that's running through each of the recipes will be squash, different kind of squash, pumpkin squash, delicata,
Mhm.
butternut squash, to be specific. So those are the three recipes we're going to be doing. Um, so the first one will be a turkey sausage from scratch, stuffed delicata squash. And so we'll get into that right quick here, but the other two recipes, the ravioli recipe with butternut squash and then pumpkin hummus at the end. So let's kick this off. We got a lot of stuff to do. Delicata squash.
Yes,
It's like one of your favorites.
it's
right?
my favorite. Yes,
Yeah.
you know that. Yes.
Yeah. So if you've never had it before, it's becoming really popular lately, the last few years anyway. It's really easy to work with. Cut it open, scoop it out, roast it off like you would any other squash, and you can actually eat the skin. So I'm not going to peel that today. So just it's best to have some sort of a seasoning on it. I find it can be a little bit, depending on the size of it. The bigger ones will be a little more bitter. The little ones, I mean, the skin I'm talking about now, not the flesh. Flesh is just like a squash. I mean, a little sweet. Can have that same texture of squash. But yeah, definitely eat the skin. I mean, it's what's
Fiber.
fiber is the
Yes.
big thing.
Yes, there's a
Skin.
lot of fiber in the skin. So if you don't have to cut it, I always tell people, don't cut it or don't peel it.
Feel it. Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Some of the other squash, like acorn squash and buttercup and butternut squash and all those with a really thick skin, be really hard to digest.
Mhm.
So those are better when they're peeled. But this one, go ahead and just eat the skin too. So I'm going to cut this in half the long way, and we're actually going to stuff this with some sausage, homemade sausage here, turkey sausage, and a mixture of wild rice and vegetables and fresh herbs and that sort of thing. So we're going to scoop out these seeds to make room for that little sausage and rice pilaf, we're going to call it.
Mhm.
Okay, so you see we've got the delicata squash here. Save these seeds. I was at home and we made, seeds that you just kind of rinse them off, wash them off, and then toast them, maybe a little olive oil, a little whatever seasoning you want, a little salt, of course, and toast them off in a slow oven, 300 degrees or whatever, just until they get a little dry and a little toasty, and just let them sit, cool down, and they become nice and crunchy. So a nice little treat in the fall. So that one's on the house. We didn't really plan that one.
No,
Don't have to pay for that.
no. Yeah, that was a free tip.
Yeah.
The rest of them you have to pay for.
That's right. All right, so let's take this. I'm just using a regular spoon just to get out those seeds.
Are these seeds similar to a pumpkin seed? These look a little bit smaller.
Well, I would say they're smaller, and they're maybe a little bit easier with the pumpkin seeds. I know sometimes pumpkin seeds get big and
Yeah.
they have that outer little shell.
Yep.
But these are great. I mean, you don't have to do anything with them. Yeah,
Maybe a little bit more toggle when it comes to chewing.
right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So we're going to pre-roast this. So we're not going to actually stuff it raw. So pre-roasting makes things go a lot smoother. You don't have to worry about the stuffing getting overdone and whatnot. So that's just generally speaking for cooking in general when you're going to stuff something like peppers or, well, not so much peppers, but I'm thinking like mushrooms. You want to pre-bake those before you stuff them. Otherwise, especially with mushrooms and squash, with the kind of watery you want to make them get, cook all that out, kind of roast it. So I'm just going to put a little oil down. Just a little olive oil, extra virgin olive oil for lots of flavor. And then a little bit of salt and pepper on the flesh. And you see, I kind of rubbed the oil on the outside too. That'll help get some flavor on that on the skin as well. And then I'm just going to put a little salt on there as well. It'll kind of melt into the skin as it cooks. So we're going to roast that off in a 350-degree oven. I would say a good half hour, maybe a little less if you have a convection oven. So still 350 and roasting that on at a medium oven. I'm going to add a little water to the bottom of it just so it doesn't like burn the pan, and it helps to steam the squash a little bit. So into the oven this goes. And I'm sorry. So we're not going to, no, I'm just going to take it off to the side because I don't want to do this in real time because it's going to take a little longer. So that's how I would do it. Just pop it into the oven then for about half an hour.
Perfect. I think the other nice thing about working with the delicata squash, it is a little bit more manageable in regards to cutting.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen a lot of people try and get through like a butternut squash or even try to do pumpkin from scratch, and it is a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. If you're not comfortable with a knife, I feel like a delicata squash is a good intro.
Yeah.
To
Oh,
working
yeah.
with one.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Good point.
Yep.
And I just kind of blew right by the knives. I'm using a big old chef's knife, and this is what I usually use is the Sentoku, the Japanese style. Very thin blade. You want to be careful with cutting squash with the thicker, tougher skin. The thin blade's probably going to break more easily. So we want to use quite a heavy knife. I mean, if you even have like a Chinese cleaver or something like that, that works just fine too. But this knife works really good for those purposes. So let's make a little sausage now.
Yes.
So turkey. This is ground turkey. It's a combination of breast and thigh. You're going to get a little more fat, of course, with the thigh. And so I would want to have that flavor in the sausage as opposed to just straight like chicken or turkey breast.
Yes.
But you certainly can use a substitute. I mean, if you don't have access to turkey, or if it's a little more expensive, you could definitely use pork, ground pork. Beef, probably not so much. You want to have some of that. You want to be able to have a sausage flavor, and I don't think anything other than those would give you that flavor. But,
Yes.
so if you're following along with the recipes, I'm cutting these recipes in half. So this is about a half a pound of ground turkey that I'm just going to put in here. It's got a little parsley in it already because I'm using it from another part of the kitchen that we are doing some turkey burgers with. But this is just regular parsley in there, and I think that's a little more than a half pound. I'm just going off from my own experience. Yeah. So, and then, so we're going to add some stuff to this. Let's do a little apple. I'm going to, this is a Harrelson apple. It's local. I'm not sure how far across the country you can get it, but it stays up firm when you bake it with it. It's almost like a Granny Smith apple in that sense. So it's a little, got a little tartness too. So you kind of want that cut through the sausage flavor. So I'm just going to grate this on a box grater.
Yeah. Does that add moisture too?
This will have not as much moisture as some apples.
Okay.
Right. Good point. So you don't want to add too much moisture to your sausage. And I'm just grating that. I'm doing about a half of an apple there. You just want some of the flavor in there. You could use other apples in there. You could use dried apples. You could leave it out. That's another option for you.
So you could leave it out and it wouldn't really affect the like texture of it.
Right. Yeah. No,
Okay.
It's not going to affect the texture, and it's just nice to have a little contrast with some fruit.
Sure.
Sweetness and a little tartness, in addition to just the turkey. All right, and then so I'm going to have some dried herbs here, and you'll see the recipe calls for some fresh and some dried. So I'm going to do some dried in a sausage here. Traditionally, you would use dry spices and herbs in a sausage. So I'm doing that for that, and then for the pilaf, I'm going to do the fresh herbs for
Yeah.
that. So that's just a little, so we can use both. I mean, you feel free to use do vice versa, or do all dry or all fresh. It's totally up to you. I'm just going to show both actually. So, all right. So I got some dried sage, rub sage they call it. And the trick with sausage, if you've ever made sausage, is have you made any sausage at all?
Yes.
You make sausage.
Well, I got a family at home that's
Nice.
like, we want the traditional.
Nice.
Yep.
So, yeah. So you not really. I was going to say the secret. It's not really a secret, but you want to add a lot of flavor to it.
Mhm.
Sausage. I mean, the flavors can get kind of lost if you don't add enough seasoning.
Mhm.
So I like to add, a lot of seasoning to this. And this is kind of an Italian style sausage that we're doing today. So it's got kind of a little bit of fennel here. That was garlic, granulated garlic. And then the fennel seeds in there. Got the classic Italian sausage flavor.
If you're doing different, like, obviously this is ground turkey, if you were doing like a regular sausage, would you do different seasonings, or would you do same seasonings?
As far as different
Like
different
more?
meats.
Yeah, like
Different-
if you were to do like regular sausage, like a typical stuffing for Thanksgiving,
You mean like a
pork sausage,
pork
yep.
sausage?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's no reason to
No,
change the amounts. I mean, you definitely want to add in a lot of seasoning to it.
Mhm.
And then of course, some salt you're gonna need, to bring out all those flavors, and a little bit of black pepper. All right, and then we've got our pan over here that's heating up nicely, and we'll just add this to the, and as it cooks, we'll just kind of crumble it up. So you don't have to worry about sort of crumbling it at the beginning. So I'll just throw in a little bit here and there. This is again some olive oil and a nonstick pan. I'm going to turn that up to about medium high because I want a good sear on that. I don't want it to sort of, we've talked about this before, if you have it too low and you overfill the pan, then it cools the pan down and it kind of just simmers and more braising than you would sear. I want a good sear on it. And if you can hear that sizzle, that's what you want to hear. Right? That's a good indication that your pan is nice and hot. And let's just let that cook here. And then once that is done, we will actually make our rice pilaf. And you're not going to see a lot of chopping and knife technique today. We've got a lot of things to go through.
Mhm.
So we have some pre-diced onions and celery and garlic, pre-cooked wild rice that's going in the pilaf, and I pre-cut some mixture of fresh herbs there that we'll use as well. So that is the basic idea with doing these things in advance. And that, I mean, you can even do that if you're making this at home. Prep it the day before, have it all laid out, ready to go.
Oh,
and then,
absolutely.
yeah, toss it all together, and you're good to go. But yeah, that's a great way to.
If you were to do this vegetarian,
Yeah.
because let's say, I know that's like kind of a big thing, is maybe doing a little bit more of a plant forward Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
or if you have someone at Thanksgiving who doesn't eat meat, and you want to kind of cater them, you could do something like this. But what would you replace that filling with if you were to just do vegetarian?
I would actually do. You could substitute, tofu if you wanted to do like a protein
Yeah.
substitute.
Yep.
That would be a good substitute. Crumbled up some tofu with the same seasonings, the same
Okay.
way I did it, or just leave it out, and you could add in just those spices into the rice
Mhm.
that we're making too. So I mean, that's another option. A great substitute. I think we've talked about this before. Some of the relatively new plant-based meat substitute. like
Yeah.
Beyond Meat and Impossible Meat and whatnot. Those,
Not,
you want to speak to that
yeah, it's not my favorite, if I'm being honest. I think it's okay to do sometimes.
as a dietitian? You're speaking,
Yeah,
right?
as a dietitian, yep. It's not my favorite to use as a constant replacement, but let's say you maybe want to go vegetarian for other reasons and you're looking for something that's similar, maybe even just kind of getting your feet wet. It is very high in sodium. And I
Right.
think some of them might even use coconut oil, which can have
Yeah.
saturated fat in it, which a lot of the time that's what animal products have is the saturated fat, which if you're trying to swap that out, then you're not really getting much benefit from it. So I try to encourage people because you get so much benefit from a legume. It's like tenfold the benefit that you get from a legume versus something like like one of those meat alternatives. So even for me, like when I make something like this, the wild rice does have a fair amount of protein in it. It's a whole grain. But even if you paired it, like maybe you do something like with chickpeas.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely chickpeas would work.
I
Sorry, I was just gonna
No,
grab
you're
a
good.
bowl here. Yeah, definitely chickpeas or lentils or.
Yeah, oh, lentils would be another really good one, yes.
Good substitute. for
Yes.
it. If you're concerned about the protein.
Yes, if
Part
you're
of it.
concerned about the protein part, because I know a lot of people will use this as a substitute for the turkey for vegetarians at Thanksgiving.
Right. All right, so that didn't take long. That was just
No.
turkey and a little oil, and that's fully cooked. I'm gonna leave that at medium-high temperature, and we're gonna get going on our rice pilaf. A little more oil, and we'll do the onions and carrots. Calling it a
Celery?
rice. I'm sorry, not carrots. Celery. Thank you. Where's the carrots? Where the heck? And I'm gonna season that up. Season each stage of your cooking. That way you'll get lots of flavor. Building lots of flavor, and that's what part of the idea with pilaf is to enhance that grain, whatever it is. This happens to be wild rice. And I see my vegetables minus the carrots are getting soft. I'm gonna throw in my garlic.
You could put carrots in it if you
Definitely.
wanted to,
Definitely, yep.
so
Or peppers.
no harm, no
or-
foul.
Yeah, well, peppers would work really well in here, like make it nice and colorful.
Yep,
But this is kind of I almost equate it with like a stuffing
Yeah.
flavor.
Yeah.
Traditional bread stuffing or cornbread stuffing. I mean, you use celery and onions, not so much carrots, but you can. And then lots of sage and fresh herb. We got rosemary and thyme as well as sage that's going to go in here. So that's sort of keeping with that whole stuffing theme, and that's very common at this time of year.
yes,
Thanksgiving as well, you'll have those similar flavors.
yep.
Okay, so I'm just gonna put my wild rice in there.
Especially if you are, again, back to that vegetarian substitute. I feel like this is the big question I get around Thanksgiving.
Right.
A lot of, you have your turkey, but then also a lot of people will do their stuffing, obviously, with like a pork sausage. And then that leaves you with too few items at Thanksgiving. And so something like this, it's like, you can get the best of both worlds. You can use it as a substitute for both the stuffing and the turkey.
All right, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of water to that, so to cool it up and heat it up. You don't really have to heat it up so much because we're gonna bake it in the oven after it's in the
Yep.
squash, all the stuff squash. So, recipe calls for cherries, dried cherries. I wasn't able to get dried cherries, so I'm gonna substitute some dried cranberries. They're much more readily available
Yeah.
as well. So, and the dried cherries, if you can get them, I mean, it's a great flavor to have that pop of dried cherry flavor. A little more expensive though.
Yeah.
As well. So this dried cranberries in there. They're kind of red like berries, so I like a little more.
Yeah, works.
All right, and you can see that, this is what we got going on here. Just sort of getting everything warmed up so it has that, so it starts to develop a nice homogeneous flavor. And then I'm just gonna put my turkey sausage back in here, and I'm gonna get that hot. Make sure we have it all cooked through. We're going to be stuffing the squash and then topping it with a little Parmesan cheese, popping it in the oven. And since it's not really stuffed really full, it doesn't have to be in the oven that long. Probably just enough to get it warm. If you have a instant read thermometer, I would take it up to 165 just to be safe. Take it up to 165, just till the cheese melts. And you make sure to get that up to temperature 165. Anytime you're cooking with poultry, just to be safe, I would take it up to that temperature, which that will, I won't say kill, but that will reduce the amount of the number of bacteria that are in that roll in your stuffing here. We're calling it stuffing.
We're gonna call it stuffing.
Oh, it's stuffing.
Put on stuffing.
Great. So I got that. Now at the end here, I'm going to turn my burner off and put in just chopped up some sage, rosemary, and thyme. And I think we'll throw parsley in there too, just to make the Simon and Garfunkel song. All right. All right, let me grab that squash now.
Can show people what it looks
Yeah,
like.
this is what the squash looks like after it's baked, probably about a half an hour. You see it, you notice I put that cut side down. So it helps to kind of help steam that. And you'll see that the delicata squash is, you can't really see it, but it stays, the texture stays a little firm after you cook it. So it's not going to be like a mush, like some squashes, like butternut squash. You can just do a puree of that. But this is a little more difficult. So it's got a little more, excuse me, it's got a little more texture, but it still has that great sweet flavor.
I think that's probably what it makes it nice to be a squash that's stuffed, right? It's easier to stuff because it has a little bit more structure to it, you think?
Possibly, yeah. Yeah, I've done like acorn squash.
Yeah, that's what
I mean,
yep.
yeah, and that's definitely, I mean, as long as it's in the skin, I mean, that'll hold its shape as well. But yeah, but so this is easy, you know, once it gets heated up again, it'll become a little more soft, but it's not going to be as soft as the others, and it does lend itself a little better, like you say, to stuffing. So I'm going to just add this to this.
So pretty. And the nice thing about this is that, let's say you're using it as even like a main course. Let's say you're maybe a smaller group of people you're getting together for Thanksgiving and use something like this. It is very well balanced. You know, it's got the protein from the turkey, it's got a whole grain with the wild rice, and then it has the carbohydrate to it. But it is very well balanced, and I feel like it's a good filling item to have at Thanksgiving. Because I know a lot of times some things we're eating at Thanksgiving, like a lot of mashed potatoes, or we were talking about sweet potato casserole earlier. They're not always the most filling, and then sometimes you feel like you want to fill up on a lot of it to try and feel full, but you don't always feel full because there's not a lot of fiber in it and there's not a lot of protein in it. This has that.
Okay, excellent. So, I mean, if you were going to use it as like a side dish or something like that, you definitely, I mean, if you're having a turkey with it or another big piece of protein or meat or something, you'll be kind of overkill with the turkey in there. But so definitely consider using just some wild rice, pilaf stuffed delicata squash, or like we talked about, the lentils or any other kind of legume would work as well.
Yep, that'd be perfect.
So this is going to go in the oven, and I'm going to Same temperature, 350. And then we'll just let it sit in there for a while, and we'll show you what it's like when the cheese is melted and it becomes hot at 165.
Perfect.
165.
Well, Chef John, put that in the oven really quick. We can take a question or two. Joe, is there anything out there for us?
Yes, we have a couple of questions that came through. One of the questions I think you may have answered. If you can't find a delicata squash, is there a different type that you can use?
Yeah, so definitely, I think the acorn, in fact, I think that's what we did last year is we did a stuffed acorn squash. That would be perfectly fine as well.
All right. And can you repeat what type of apple it was that you used?
What type of apple was it, John?
Harrelson.
Harrelson apple. You can use different types of apples if you would like, but Harrelson was,
This is local.
Yep.
Local and seasonal apple at this time of year. I personally like the Harrelson apples for baking
Flavor?
and cooking for the yeah, it's a little tart and a little bit sweet and holds up really well to bake.
All right. Another question was, can it be microwaved instead of roasted?
for the cheese portion, I'm guessing.
Probably for the squash, for the roasting of the squash portion. It was earlier on when you were
Roasting
doing
of the
squash.
squash in the beginning.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, you could do that.
yep, yep.
That's perfectly fine. It would more or less steam it unless you have a really fancy microwave oven that also does a little bit of crisping up and whatnot. But yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. Just to you definitely want to get it pre-cooked, and that's the whole idea. I mean, you don't want to put the stuffing in, raw
Yeah.
sausage. Raw.
Would you? Yeah, raw.
Wash.
Raw.
Or
Yes. Or carrots. Anyways, would you poke holes in the squash? I know that's something that I've done when I will put a squash in the microwave. I will put holes in it, and I'm not sure why I've done that, but I've always done it. I think my
If
mom used to do it.
if you're cooking it whole and not cutting it, I can see.
Yes, I will. If I'm cooking it whole, I
Yeah.
will use a fork to put.
I've
holes in
always
it.
done that too, like a potato, I always
Yeah,
put holes in
yeah.
it, so so it doesn't explode on you.
Yeah, so it's more. Yeah, okay.
I
But you
haven't had
can
it.
cut it.
Yeah, or yeah, right, cut it as well.
Yeah. Good questions.
Yes.
All right, this is the one I think we're most excited for is getting into the butternut squash recipe. I'd be curious out there who has made butternut squash at home and who's attempted this. So
Butternut squash ravioli.
ravioli, yes.
Ravioli, yes.
Butternut squash ravioli. So Joe, you'll have to see if anybody in the chat is saying anything.
Yeah. Fresh pasta dough. And we're gonna be making little raviolis out of these.
Yeah,
Something a little different, something a little fun.
yeah.
Let me get myself all set up here.
And butternut squash is like the thing. I feel like I see butternut squash everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Menus and soups and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
it's the cat's pajamas right now.
In Teaching Kitchen in another section, we've done like butternut squash soup or puree with like
Yes.
coconut milk and that sort of thing. So
Yep.
butternut squash lends itself really well to purees and mash and that sort of thing. So
Mhm.
so definitely a good option here. And I pre-done this. This is the butternut squash stuffing. So you'll see there's some a little bit of onion and garlic, roasted garlic, a little Parmesan cheese, salt and pepper, and so we've just roasted that off all together, and then put it in a food processor or blitzed it a little bit, or you can always chop it by hand, or just use an old-fashioned potato masher and mash it up roughly. I don't like to puree that too much. I like a little texture in there. So
Yeah.
and I think that'll hold together a little better in the ravioli itself. So
Agreed.
all right, let's make a little pasta. So we've got some flour and eggs. This is a cup of flour, all-purpose flour. You don't need to do anything special, and 2 eggs. I'm just going to use a food processor here, and it comes together fairly quickly. You can do this by hand. Put the eggs in make a well in the center of your flour, and put your eggs in, and Mix it all together. I mean, if you have the time and if you like the feel and that sort of way of cooking, that's perfectly fine. I'm just going to show you another way, a quick way of getting this dough together, and how how simple it is if you have the tools to do it. You think, oh my God, fresh pasta?
Yeah.
I can't. It's going to take forever.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Because in one of the things that you want to be careful of is over mixing it, right?
Yes, especially with these all-purpose flours, you're gonna activate gluten,
Exactly. Yeah.
so you don't want to overmix it. So this is what I did on the inside. I'm sorry you don't have a camera on the top, but it just comes together by itself. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to add any water to it. There we are.
There we go.
Yeah. So you got a fairly soft dough. Set that aside, maybe. So yeah, it's a fairly soft dough, and since the gluten has sort of been activated through the use of the machine, we're going to let it rest for 30 minutes. I hope you have another half hour onto your. No.
He'll be with us all night.
No, so I did one a little bit ahead of time here. So this one I'll actually wrap up and we'll use that for another time. But this is great. See how easy it is. I mean, you can leave it sit out. You can put it in the fridge. It just needs to rest for about half an hour before you actually start, rolling it out. All right, so there's that. So yeah, so this is rested about 30 minutes. And now we're just going to roll it out. We have a little pasta roller over here.
Yep.
But I don't want to roll out the whole thing. I probably want to roll out maybe in thirds, but that might be too much. We'll see what happens. So if you don't have a pasta roller, you can, if you have a little rolling pin, or you could use a wine bottle or any dowel or anything like that to roll this out. But you want it fairly thin, so it cooks quickly, but it doesn't, it holds together. It won't burst open. So I've got a little flour here. Yeah, I'm gonna get it in there. I'm just gonna dip this in flour, shake off any excess. Don't want to get too much flour. And the pasta roller here is on 0. So if you have one of these pasta machines, it just gradually, bring these rollers together more and more, just to get the dough as thin as you like. So I'm just going to run through here, and I like to fold it over in thirds and run through. I just change that to a number 1. Yeah, you want about the width of this here in order to make your raviolis. I'm going to skip a couple and go up to 3. And I can tell this is getting a little bit soft, so I'm just going to add a little bit of, you can kind of see that where it's starting to kind of break up a little bit. I want to add a little flour to that, just so it's not too wet and breaking up like that. So I'm going to go up to this. This goes up to like 9, and I'm not going to do that thin. This is getting about as thin, I think, as I'm going to want it. Yeah.
And you can get one of these on, you can get one of these pretty easily, like on an Amazon or Walmart or.
I remember back when I was just getting into this back in the 90s, it was, you had a hard time finding them. They were like really expensive, like $50 or whatever. Now they're down to like, you can get these for like under 20, I think.
Under 20.
Yeah. All right, so I'm bringing this back down to 0. Folding that guy over into thirds. And now I'm gonna start to.
And do you want it where it's, like, is there a thinness that you don't want it to get to?
Yeah, if it's too thin, it just, you run the risk of it, exploding and tearing and when you're boiling it. And you see this is starting to get a little torn on that. So I'm gonna add a little flour. Yeah, so yeah, don't get it as don't think you have to go as thin as the machine goes to. So this is fairly, you don't want to be able to see through it. You can't really see through it, but it's I don't even know if there's I mean, I suppose if we use millimeters, we could talk about how thin it is. But it's
So it's pretty thin still.
yeah. And you certainly can experiment too. Do a few, I mean, if you're into experimenting, do a few, do some that are a little thicker and some that are thinner and see what happens. And I went to about 6 out of 9 on this particular scale. There we go. Not quite be able to see through it, but then quite, thin to hold together, and yet, it's going to cook fairly quickly. So I think I didn't do this one on a 6.
One
So
more?
I'm going to do this just so they're both same thickness. Yeah, can we grab that?
Yep.
So it's got a little, oops. Yeah, there we go. All right. So that one didn't get as wide as I would like it, but we'll just use this one for the top, and we'll kind of guesstimate as to where it is. So all you do then, I don't have time to do all of this. So all you do then is just put all the filling in, and we're going to be doing about these guys, this size here. This is just a cutter. You don't need anything fancy. You can certainly buy those, the ravioli makers that kind of look like an ice cube tray. In fact, I think the recipes that we're sending out say you can use an ice cube tray, and that works perfectly fine too.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I've used that for before.
Yeah.
This looks a little bit more fun.
And
The ice cube tray can get a little tricky.
okay.
It can be a little bit messier, especially if you don't have your dough like perfectly shaped the way you want it to.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I've never done that trick before, so it's a great.
You got one lying around at home?
substitute, yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Yeah, let's see time. We're getting a little close on time. So I'm just going to put a little bit of water in here. You want to make a good seal, so I'm going to add a little water to right around here so that it does stick together. And just right around the stuffing part. And I'm just going to put the top on.
Ooh.
That might be a little not as wide as it should. Play with it a little bit. So then you want to, press down around the edges, just so there's no air pockets in there. Otherwise, it'll heat up, and then you'll have an air pocket, and it'll burst on you. So kind of press right around the outside, right up next to that filling. Okay. Is that going to be okay? I think that might be okay. I'm going to add a little more flour to the top of that. And I just want to make sure we have a good seal. Yeah, you see there's little air bubbles in there. I just want to kind of work them out. All right.
Ooh, they look pretty.
Yeah, you can get these little cutters with scalloped edges too, so you can make the little fancy scalloped edges as well. So, and you can actually use this dough as well to make it in smaller little raviolis if you like.
So you put it through here, and you would put it through here again?
I would be careful on that, on
Yeah,
doing it too many times through
Yeah.
there because it's going to work the
right.
gluten too much. So, should set this over here. Get, make sure it doesn't stick on me. And I'm going to boil that up a little bit later. So, all right.
Simple.
Yeah,
Right.
it's something that's you can get the kids involved in.
Yeah.
Cutting these out. You just,
If anybody's not seen them.
yeah, just got to make sure that they're to get those air pockets out of that, out of the out from around the stuffing. And that's pretty much it for my pan. So that was fairly simple.
Yes.
It just takes a little bit of time for your I just heard the fans go off, so sorry, I'm distracted. So it just takes a little time to let the dough relax a little bit, but it comes together fairly quickly, and
Yes.
you can use the same dough to make, you know, lasagna sheets, or this also has spaghetti and fettuccine. I mean, it's the same dough. It can be used in any of your pastas.
Super simple.
Super simple, yeah. Eggs and flour. Who'd have thought?
Who'd have thought?
All right, I'm gonna actually have water.
And I know that a lot of the time people are, when they look at squashes, they get really into like, oh, it's very heavy in carbohydrates, and should I be eating that much of it? And in all honesty, it does have more carbohydrates in it. But it's actually not as high as people would think. And with the fiber that comes in the squashes, especially if you are eating some of the skin like you are in the delicata squash, it actually really, really, really helps balance it out. So although there's some carbohydrate in it, one, it's a good carbohydrate. Two, with the fiber that's in it, that really helps slow down your digestion, and it helps you feel fuller for longer, which is why I love utilizing something like a squash as a main dish, or as part of like your stuffing for something like a ravioli. So it's actually really nice. I mean, and if you wanted to, you could add, like, you could do like a small amount of ravioli on the side and still do like a protein as maybe like your center choice.
Right.
But either way, you're still gonna get more fiber with doing something like that as your center versus maybe just like a cheese.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. So we'll see what happens here. We'll have to do a little drum roll and see if these actually do cook all the way through. I'm just making sure there's no air, that air pocket in there is gone. So our water's almost to a boil. Thing works really fast. Why don't I grab the squash right now before that gets destroyed while we're waiting there, and I'll bring that over and plate that up, and we'll see what.
Awesome. Joe, any questions that we can answer?
Yes, we have a few questions that came through. One of the questions is, let's see, do you use the eggs at room temperature, or doesn't it matter?
Gosh, that'd be a good question for John. Do you use that? Do you do the eggs at room temperature? I know with my baking, I like my eggs at room temperature because they mix better, but does that matter with pasta?
I would say eggs at room temperature are the way to go if you're making any kind of egg dish. So those were eggs at room temperature. Yeah.
All right. Another question is, in the delicata squash recipe, would you be able to substitute mushrooms?
Ooh, substitute mushrooms, I would imagine maybe probably for the meat. I know mushrooms are
Sure.
gonna have a lot more moisture to them, so it'll probably, you had mentioned that you wanna almost bake them ahead of time, right?
Right, yeah, definitely, you would want to reduce the amount of moisture that you get from the mushrooms. So yeah, cooking them, I mean, if you chop them up or slice them up and saute them, cook them before you actually add everything else, yeah, you
Yeah.
could definitely substitute the mushrooms for that.
That's a good suggestion.
Yeah, I like that. All right, so we've got a couple
So
of
pretty.
delicata squash, stuffed squash with turkey. Is that nice? You can
Yeah,
just put that knife on the pan here.
sure.
There we go.
All right.
Let's get that off there. There we go. There we are. Perfect.
What do you think, guys?
That is the delicata squash stuffed with turkey. We just turkey and wild rice stuffing. And just a little Parmesan cheese on there I put on to kind of melt in there and add a little more interest in flavor. So yeah.
If anything, it looks good.
Yeah.
It'll be pretty on your Thanksgiving table.
Oh yeah, yeah. So water's almost coming to a boil here. Why don't I switch over to do the
Yes.
hummus? So pumpkin hummus, I'll see the time is running away from us. So I just want to make sure to show you exactly about how to make this hummus. And basically, all hummuses have pretty much the same
Mhm.
basic ingredients here. So we have tahini and we have some cumin. These are actually toasted cumin seeds. I like the flavor of the seeds rather than ground cumin, but certainly use ground cumin if you have it. Garlic's very important. And I have a little cayenne here, a little zip, a little zing, and more zip and zing from the lemon as well. And then we're also using pumpkin as the base. Usually use chickpeas or any kind of other legume. But pumpkin hummus is a great substitute, great time of year to use this. And I like the balance of flavor here. A little bit sweet with the lemon juice and the tahini. I mean, that goes really well together. See, my water's boiling here. But I want to go back to the hummus to make sure we get that all together, show you what it looks like when it comes together. So I'm just putting everything in a food processor and I'm gonna burn myself. So yeah, let's get that up here. Garlic, I love the garlic. Can't really have hummus without like fresh garlic. And I'm gonna put all this cumin seeds and a little bit of cayenne.
If you wanted to, you probably could do a little bit of chickpea if you wanted. 'Cause pumpkins, it can be a bit watery. I mean, pumpkin in itself is a majority water.
Right.
So you could do chickpea if you maybe like a little bit different of a texture, or if you like maybe a bit more solid of a texture.
Right. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt for that. So you notice that pumpkin almost looks like the butternut squash, a little bit like that. And it's actually fresh pumpkin that I used. I mean, certainly can use the canned stuff, and then maybe a little bit different color. So if you notice that, that's the reason. We'll just put that in our food processor. And that's kind of really good. And you really don't need anything else in here, like oil or water or anything. The tahini will really help to what I want to say, help to thin it out and kind of hold it together. All right. That's looking really good. So this,
Yeah.
the consistency. If you like a really smooth hummus, this would be it. Just making sure it all is incorporated there.
That is better texture than I honestly would have thought with using that pumpkin with how like watery it can be.
Yeah, yeah, it could. The tahini I'm using isn't quite as watery,
Yeah.
loose, as some of the tahinis that we have. So, there you go. Just gonna drizzle a little oil on there and a little sesame seeds for some garnish. Toasted sesame seeds. And we'll do a little bit of pita as well.
There you go.
Here's our second dish.
Look at that.
Yay.
Yum.
All right, looks like we got some pasta water going here, and I'm gonna salt that. Moving right along here. I'm gonna put a healthy couple pinches of salt in there. That's about, I would say, a quart of water. And then I'm just gonna slip the raviolis in there. And with fresh pasta, kind of switching gears back and forth.
I know.
So with fresh pasta, it's not going to take as long as a dry pasta. So when they float, I'm going to let them just simmer away for another minute or two, just to make sure that the inside is hot and that the pasta itself is cooked. And I'm going to make sure these are actually cooking. I'm going to flip them over. I apologize again for our lack of overhead camera.
They're floating at the top right now. They didn't take very long to get there. No, you got to watch it. Don't leave it.
Yep. And I would say don't overfill it too. It's going to be really a mess if you overfill it and you take that temperature down.
Mhm.
So, all right. Pan, I need that
Pan?
little saute pan to make our little brown butter sauce. All right. So you can see what at point this is here. So it's been cooking for about a minute or two. I'm just going to set that there and get the pan heated up. We're going to make a little brown butter sauce real quickly. I see that we're running out of time. So if you can hang in there, guys, that would be awesome. Let me get something.
There you go.
There we are. And I'm just going to put a little oil on that to give it a toss, just so it doesn't stick together. So yeah, that's
Those look together really well.
turned out really good. So then the brown butter sauce is butter, fresh sage. You can use hazelnuts, but these are actually walnuts. And then we're going to do some lemon juice, and also a little bit of salt. So I want to get my little garnish ready here.
Should we taste test pumpkin hummus? I'll taste test pumpkin hummus.
Yeah.
All right.
So you get to this stage here, and you want to brown the milk solids. So you'll see how it gets to be a little more brown than what you think it's going to be. So let me just continue to get that. You'll see it's starting to get some brownness on the bottom in there, and that's right where I want it, because it's going to continue to cook like that. And I'm going to put a few sage leaves in there, and then just to heat up the walnuts. How's the hummus? Spicy?
I just got the spice. It's really good, but it tastes a lot like typical hummus. You don't really taste the pumpkin too much, I think, with the tahini. But the nice part is that pumpkin got all the benefits.
Definitely.
It's very, very low in calorie, and it's super high in vitamin A, vitamin C. So, I mean, you get the benefit of it. I think it would be a little bit lower in calorie than a typical hummus.
Yeah. It's really really tasty.
Mm-hmm,
And here are the raviolis.
mm-hmm.
Raviolis.
Ravioli. That's gorgeous.
There we are. And there's your free squash
There we go.
recipes.
You guys can
Alright,
see 'em.
excellent. Apologize for the
Yes.
late timing here, but wanted to show you everything we can do with fall harvest
Yep.
and squash that we've done 3 ways. I mean, you can substitute any of these squashes out for each other in any of these recipes here. So I hope you try it. It's
Yes.
really great, great way to cook something other than just, roasted squash with butter.
Mhm.
We got some variety.
Try something different, try
Yeah.
something new this Thanksgiving. So thank you guys for joining us today. We hope you learned a little something, and then we also hope you get to try the recipes. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Kelly and Chef John. That looks wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Sorry if we weren't able to get to your questions. Chef John, one quick question for you. That's probably an easy one. Somebody had a question about the type of knife and the manufacturer of the knife that you had on the cutting board earlier.
The Japanese knife?
I think that is the one they were referring to.
Yeah, this is the brand is Mercer, and we can get them at any, it's probably on the low end of knives out there. You can get knives that are, $300-400 a piece, but this is more like probably under $40 for this one. So, and I'm not sure where you can get this brand actually, but we've got through our purveyor. So yeah, this is the Japanese Suntoku knife by Mercer.
All right, great. Thank you. All right. Again, thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Chef John. Wonderful. It looks delicious. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Again, our next Let's Get Cooking with Kelly and Chef John will be on December 13th, and the topic will be healthy holiday baking. So I just put into the chat for you the link, again, www.letsmovebyuhc.com. You can find all of our events there in the events section where you can register, and also keep an eye out in your emails for announcements as well. So thank you again, everyone. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Chef John. Thank you to our event hosting team, and we hope to see everyone at our next Let's Move by United Healthcare event. Take care, everyone.
Bye, guys. See you in
Bye-bye.
December.
See you next time.